Good evening, good evening, good evening. We are already live on social media, and there's a reason for that because I only have half an hour. I have half an hour. It is Monday, the 22nd of April, and I have had some happenings in my life. And
Your
today,
microphone's not working, MJ.
okay, well, it is on social media. Let's just see. Can you hear me now? And what about now? There we go. Then you should be able to hear me now.
Still not working, you're not speaking.
Hang on a minute. Let's see if I can leave. Let me leave. That's the thing about social media, right?
Waiting for MJ to get
How we doing?
working.
Can you hear me now?
Testing.
Can you hear me now?
MJ,
can you hear me?
there's something wrong with your leads.
No, there isn't.
We cannot hear if you are talking.
Well, there we are, live on social media, but we're not live on Clubhouse. So I'm probably gonna have to say goodbye, but let's see, shall we? Let's see. How are we doing?
Surprising.
Can you hear me now?
MJ, you're still not talking, so
can you leave?
If you want to put something in the chat, try and reset the room up, or figure out which one of your leads is not working. Switch to the phone instead of the laptop. Flashing on and off. I will invite you up to.
Can you hear me now?
How's that? Try now.
I think that'll be fine now.
Nope, you're still not talking, MJ. We can't hear you. Okay. Don't know what's. Just check the text. I will leave.
No, I can't. I can't even end it. Well, I never did. We appear to have a problem, people. Let's try again. I tell you, we shall see, won't we? Let's see now. Any joy? Can you hear me? Excellent. Isn't that interesting? Well, good evening, good evening. We've been live on social media all over the flipping place. Glad you can hear me, James. Are you there?
Excellent. Yeah, don't know what happened there, but it's now working, so every day's a school day.
It is, isn't it? So I'm inviting everybody up, and there's a reason for that. I only have half an hour, and I only have half an hour because we've had a staff member had to go into hospital today, and then I have 7:30. So I'm going to suggest that I love you and leave you, but only after I've said Happy Earth Day. And as much as I intended to do our DSA and Access to Work fantastic quiz tonight, we're not going to be able to do that because things have changed. But what it does mean is that I am here for Earth Day, and I just wanted, before I left this room in everybody's very capable hands, I just wanted to say that I wanted to celebrate and recognise Alexia, who is of course the Earth Healer, as I celebrate the unity of our diversity. That sounds a bit backwards in coming forwards, but in our diversity, we have a unity that means that we are just telling a different story about our planet. And the story is, for me, that it's our planet and it's our responsibility. And because we are all interconnected, as we know we are, it's through our inclusion that we can make a positive change. I believe that Earth Day is an opportunity, a reminder for us to look at our choices and our behaviours, about our collective approach to the sustainability of our world. And it's my opinion that our diverse backgrounds lend themselves to this kind of happening. I think that each culture and each community has a unique perspective. And for an example, I've been researching our Indigenous populations and their practices, and it is the work of their centuries, their sustainability, that can provide us those key insights into that way of living. I think that inclusion for me means that we have to access sustainable resources for everybody, clean water, clean air, regardless of our socio-economic status, right? And so things like community gardens and growing our own food can bring both social inclusion and ecological awareness. When all those voices are heard, and when everybody has a seat at the table, metaphorically, those voices, those marginalised voices, can be heard, and that creates a platform where those unfamiliar voices can be heard and those unfamiliar solutions can be examined. Each of us, and I'm going to be, very brief tonight before I hand it over to the most important people who clearly have this planet in their hands. Each of us hold the power to influence our environment positively. It goes beyond our own choices. It goes beyond fostering an inclusive community, one that embraces and acts on those principles of sustainability. And as a teacher, the first one I would say is learn, 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 or educate, 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 or maybe everybody needs to be in that school day that James was just talking about. By participating in these kinds of events, in workshops, in togetherness, we can spread awareness like we are tonight and deepen our understanding from a different perspective. Community initiatives that seek to foster those resources in the community, they are very likely to be inclusive in their design because they're for everybody, designed by people who are in the community generally. And those in the community that advocate for inclusive policies also tend to be the ones that focus on the green initiatives, and that includes those with disabilities. So as I hand over this evening, and I will be, because I'm going to have half an hour before my next one where you guys talk about Earth Day, because today is a call to action, but it's not just a call to action for the earth that I'm on, but also a call to action for the sustainable options that we're being given. For example, as a disabled person with a wheelchair accessible vehicle, I can't get an electric car or vehicle yet that works. I can't even get to the electrical charging points in a wheelchair. So I believe Earth Day is a call to action, but not just an action of we pick up our rubbish, not just the action of let's live in a sustainable and ecologically sound way, but an opportunity to unite in our diversity. It's when we harness our collective strengths, when we work together, when we learn from each other, when we lead by example, when we look at what everybody's got to say, that we can create that sustainable environment that we need. So, as Helen Keller said, an interesting remark, keep your face to the sunshine and you cannot see a shadow. It's important that whilst we're focusing on being positive and inclusive, and they bring the greatest changes, we also need to recognise that today is Earth Day and we are here to make a difference, and that difference involves each of us, and it is each of our responsibility. That's me done. I have 10 minutes to enjoy you guys, and then 10 minutes to have a little rest. So I think we can probably, with the four of us here, run through for a great recording what Earth Day does for you. Wow, Indigenous ways to design for perpetuity and abundance. Marvellous. Absolutely, Zampi. How lovely that you have contributed that in your absence. So, James, how are you?
Yeah, quite. I'm still. My sleep rhythm is still not nowhere near where it should be at the moment. The last week or two, I've been kind of all over the place in my sleep rhythm, so I'm really a bit exhausted myself. So, yeah, I think it's all the sheer weight of everything I've gone through over the last couple of years. With when I worked at that plastic bottle factory, it wasn't a very nice environment, but it played on my mind when you saw all the techniques where they were claiming that all the plastic, so much percentage of it was recycled, but they were putting raw bags of new material in all the time, and large mixes was coming in massive tanker vehicles, and nothing on there was signifying or stating that it was that it was recycled plastic. Everything to me looked suspiciously like it was raw plastic from like the giants. Ilios, main man now behind United with the Glazers, and everything was all labelled up like that. And there was one interesting, if bottles came down the line and the line stopped, the bottle would then be reintroduced back to the process through a grinder. So maybe that was where the recycling was coming in, that they were actually ripping up a bottle that they'd already made, and maybe they were recycling it, and possibly that's the way that they were fiddling the information, because there was some other tricks that they did there which led me to believe that they used some rather mysterious dark forces into the public mass publicity machine, but also the fact that the factory was very nondescript from outside of the place. No one would know that it was the world's largest plastic plant of the 300 and odd plants that they now currently own around the world. And that was when COVID finished. All the big owners, the main plant bosses from America, everyone came to our plant first in this little town of Goulburn. And it really amazed me that literally all these people came crawling out of the woodworks on their private jets. The main bosses came over from Germany and Switzerland, and they were lordified, and it was interesting times. But they all had masks on as well, so you didn't really get to see clearly who they all were. But you knew that serious visitors were coming because of the sheer level of cleaning, and like let's polish this little brown place up, should we say, and make it look perfect. And it happens in all factories. When the main bosses come round, all of a sudden machinery the week before gets painted and cleaned up.
Indeed.
And the oil leaks stop leaking so that no one can slip and break their legs on it. And not that anything like that happened. I mean, they lose a health and safety department every year, so I dare say accidents like that don't happen because you can just brush them under the carpet. But there are some. It was very interesting when Alexia talked about the yogurt making process and all of that from the gentleman who's retired from the food industry now, and that for me rung very similar with how the plastics they really don't want to tell you about how much it's destroying hormones for ladies and for gentlemen, like how it's ruining male testosterone, all the stuff that they put in the plastics, and certainly they probably got the political power to buy certain people, I would imagine. Just saying. But it's for me. It was always a good end to the shift. The fact that I could have a shower, because I felt rather dirty every day I worked there, and then there were most days I'd come home and then have another shower, and it wasn't because I'd sweated because of the 4 miles on the bike. It was because of what was going through my head of what a terrible And it didn't help being a mental health first aid responder, one of the first ones in there, and you could just see that everyone in the factory was so epically messed up. In all of the reactions of all the wonderful people I worked with, it's like a war zone. It was really not a homely environment to work at. But these days I don't work there, which is obviously a blessing that someone sent me. So I'm very thankful. But I'm gonna finish on my soapbox now because I've had my 5 minutes, and I'll let Alexia. If you're available to speak, Alexia, that I can't. Was it David, the gentleman that worked in the in like the dairy yogurt industry? I can't think of the gentleman's name, but I remember a couple of times listening to him in Clubhouse.
David Davis that worked in there. He was a food scientist, and he was so disgusted with the way things were being made that he explained a lot of the tricks that the food companies actually use. When we finally learn of what words mean, and that sounds a rather silly thing to say, but if you read a packet of ready-made food, you won't find sugar on there, you won't find saccharine on there, because they'll put in a technical name. And every time we complain to the government to change it, they just go and find another technical name for things. That's how they get around the law. And they're not breaking the law by doing that.
High fructose corn syrup, for instance, should we just say? Oh, and one other little one, a very funny one today, because I had a video appear about the red plastic drinks bottles for the fizzy drink. Not mention the name of the large company, but they do use Santa Claus a lot in their logos, and they had machines on 24/7 at that place. I think it was 6 machines constantly on, and many wagons every day leaving. But they had a problem one day. One of the forklift drivers, who was diabetic, doesn't work there anymore. His vision wasn't too great at some point, so he mixed all of the raw Coca-Cola, the raw drink product bottles up. They do have different flavours and colours of bottles, and they ended up shutting their diabetes plant down for 3 days. So I guess that was a little blessing. And it tickled me. It was a shame, but he did move on to a much better forklifting job, which was nice for him, because they really weren't very helpful when it came to letting him get all his injections whenever he needed them urgently. So I guess they got their own blessing in disguise, really, but meant he got a new job, because they always blame someone else when it's their own fault, don't they?
Well, that is one of the sad facts of life. It's a lesson I learned in business a long time ago, even when I was an employee and I was working for cleaning business before I actually took the business over. And I actually broke something really expensive. It was put in a really stupid place. It was beautiful dolphin, but it was on an unlevel surface. And I looked at this and I thought, that's dangerous. And I walked up and I thought, I'm going to take it off of there and put it on the floor. And it just toppled over and smashed in half. And I rang my boss that was then, and she said, I'll ring her up. I said, no, you won't. I said, I will ring her up. And if she insists, I will pay for it. Because when you bring that level of care to what you do, it makes a difference. You talked about David Davis and what he talked about. I'm not very good at this, so guys, you'll have to forgive me with my dyslexia, but I'm actually going to read you the blog that I wrote today, because some of you may have seen it, some of you may not. But the picture is, half of it is the earth with a load of flags on it with different countries. Then there's a standard earth in the middle, and on the left at the bottom is a picture of sea with it's not a fish, I'm not sure, it's a dolphin, a big fish flying through. And the other side, on that same one, I've got a giraffe. I've done this for a reason. I've been talking about what we do and how it affects the world, but we're all fed up with being told just because it's World Day, don't do this and don't do that. So what I'm actually trying to help people to do is to understand why these animals need the space they need, because we actually won't survive well without them. So this is what this particular blog was about. The world you do. Does it matter what you do? I've talked about how without the help of other animals, it would be much more challenging to grow the crops we need to live. What is this picture showing you at the top? The world of flags. It's what does it have to do with you? We are looking at it from this planet than we can't. Sorry, I've made a right mess of it now. We're taking more from this planet than any other animals. This is why we have global warming. What does this have to do with the sea and the giraffe? Anyone who has worked on the land knows how quickly gorse bush grows. Not many animals can eat this. The goat can. The giraffe is like the goat. It will eat the leaves of prickly plants in Africa. The giraffe does the same job. Why the sea? What's important? Nothing can live on this earth and survive without water. Most of all, not you and not me. What's the most straightforward thing is to do? Is to reuse and only buy when you really need it. If we all just took that simple step, what a difference it could make. I've built up a reputation here for things to change. And I've had 4 days of not being able to get out with belt and clear the rubbish. My leg was only better enough for me to actually manage to get a shoe on to get outside on Saturday. And I still couldn't manage to walk far. But somebody had dumped a city, and then further down, I hadn't seen it. There was part of a bed dumped. But what these people don't realise is, because I'm out pretty much every day, and because I have eyes and ears working with me as well, I couldn't tell you exactly which tenants they came from, but I could tell you exactly where they originally were before they moved them somewhere else. And they were actually tenants in the flats down the road from where I live. So I rang Clarion Housing this morning and spoke to a lovely girl there, and I said, look, I work quite closely with your manager, but there's a settee been dumped, there's 2 beds and 2 mattresses. I said, they're trying to be clever by moving some of this further around the corner, and I told them where they were and where they come from. I said, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it. If that's they want to treat the streets, then what are they treating those flats like? And if that's the case, I'm sad to say we don't need them as tenants. And I don't really want to say that about somebody. It sounds really nasty, really painful. But if that's the way it takes to make people think about what they're doing, then so be it. years ago, if you'd lived in a rented house or a rented flat, if you didn't keep it clean and tidy, there was no question your landlord could have you out within a month or less. Now, I wouldn't like to see those practices come back, but there are some practices like making it responsible for people when they're out of work to look after an area where they live. It would teach them pride in themselves, pride in this earth, pride in the people that are around them. And God forbid they might make some friends as well instead of sitting on TV and watching all the negative things that come up.
And I think that at that point, I'm going to say good night and thank you. And we have been in inclusion. It's been a happy Earth Day. And I would like to say thank you to you all for being here. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye bye.